Peter. Senara, did you hear it?
It was very light. I didn't hear much.
Come. Say it. Read it. Louder, right? Louder.
I read Beast and the Beast. It is storybook and ladybird book. It was written by Robert Anton. I read yesterday. They are very beautiful book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. I will read the storybook on Satyagro. It was nice that it's solving mysteries. There are some children it and it's a team of detectives. Its leader is man named Peter. Good morning. I'm Puni. My favorite book. My favorite book is Mother Google. It was written by Martin Nicholas. There are two characters called Pali and Juna. It is an interesting storybook. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Purnima. I read A Hillside Family. It was written by a children's storybook. It has several characters. It has three main characters are Anne, Belinda, and Mike. I read it last week. Thank you.
Thank you. We can have a couple more people come up. We'll stop around in about 4 minutes.
Hi. I read it last week. There are several characters. The three main characters is Professor Otto Lidenbrock, Alex, and Harry. It is a children's story. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sanjana. My favorite book is Apuru Iskole. It was written by Subhash Rohan. Its main characters are Patricia and it is very famous book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marshi. I read Mother Duel. It is a storybook. It was written by Mr. Martin Vikramasinghe. I read this last week. The two main characters are Jinnah and Upali. It is a children's storybook. Thank you.
Thank you. You can have about like 2 more people go.
Hi, I'm Kishani. My favorite book is Adayalo. It's written by Mr. T.V. Raghunathan. Its main characters are Sunil and Iman. It is good.
Awesome, thank you.
Hello, I'm Hasrani. I read
Hi.
Analysis the book. It was written by Leo Tolstoy. I read it last month. It is very beautiful story. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you everyone for participating. We are gonna get lesson started just a minute earlier. So today I'm not gonna cover all of this. I'll slow down the pace a little bit. So what I do want to cover mostly is sentence structure, independent versus dependent clauses, and then we can also cover simple sentences today. And then next week we can go over compound sentences, complex sentences, and compound complex sentences. So for right now, we'll just start with the first three. So first, I want to talk about sentence structure in English. So the following statements are true about sentences in English. So a new sentence begins with a capital letter, and this is true for every sentence in English. And that every sentence also ends with punctuation. And this can be a question, a period, or an exclamation point, anything that shows that you have completed that sentence. Another rule is that a sentence can only contain one subject, or it can only contain the given subject one time. So for example, you wouldn't say, Smith, he obtained his degree. You would only say, you would either use Smith or you would use he. So if I took out Smith, it would be, he obtained his degree, or Smith obtained his degree. It's not proper English to say to say a subject to refer to a subject multiple times in within a close proximity in a sentence. So like Smith, he obtained his degree. It's we only either say Smith or we only say he. Next is a sentence contains a verb or a verb phrase. So in this previous sentence, we could say he obtained his degree. The obtained is the verb or a verb phrase in this sentence. And when we cover simple sentences, we're going to see that like all sentences have some form of a verb or a verb phrase. So a verb, just to clear it up, a verb is something as a word that shows an action. So verbs are action words. So obtained is an action word. Can someone give me another example of an action word or a verb? And I'll make a sentence out of it. So another example would be running. Running is a verb. So remember, it's any kind of action word. Or a phrase that shows action. Yes, so jumping. I could say he was jumping over the rocks. And this would be the verb. Good job. Okay, now I'm going to provide you another sentence, and then I want you to tell me what the verb is in that sentence, okay? What is the verb in that sentence? She ran to the tree. What is the verb? Remember, a verb is the action word. Ran, yeah.
That's the word.
Yes, it's ran, correct. And the ran shows action, and it, even though it's in past tense, it still shows an action. And this can be true for even future. So this is in the past tense, like we covered last week. And if I say she will run to the tree, that shows action in the future tense, right? So remember, every sentence, no matter what, will contain a verb or a verb phrase. And it's just a phrase that'll show action. Okay. And almost all sentences follow the subject, verb, and object word order in English. And this is very important to know, especially when you're writing English sentences or speaking English sentences. Make sure you refer to the subject first, then the verb, and then the object. So for example, he obtained his degree. We're going to go back to this one. He is the subject, obtained is the verb, and then his degree is the object. So if I was to use one of the sentences that we made up, if I said she ran to the tree, what is the subject in this sentence? She, correct. She is the subject. Now, what is the verb? Verb is ran, correct. And what about the object? The object of the sentence. Correct. Okay. And now a sentence also must have a complete idea that stands alone. This is also called an independent clause. So he obtained his degree is an independent clause because it's an idea that can stand alone, which means it'll make sense by itself. This is called an independent clause. There's two different types of clauses in English. There's an independent clause and there's dependent clause. So I'm going to cover that next. And now you'll see this a lot in English. So an independent clause is a group of words that contain a subject and a verb, and it can make sense on its own as a sentence. Remember, this portion is very important. It's an independent clause will always make sense on its own. A dependent clause, however, is also a group of words that can contain a subject and a verb, but it cannot make its own sentence. That's the difference. So, for example, we have Jane ate pasta. Jane ate pasta can be its own sentence. But if we say, because she was hungry cannot be its own sentence because it needs another clause to have it make sense, right? And in that same way, Sam went to the park is an independent clause, and after he finished school is a dependent clause. So we're going to practice. Sorry. There you go. Okay. So we're going to practice independent and dependent clauses together. Okay. So I'm going to write a sentence, and what I'll do is I'll have everyone tell me what the independent clause and what the dependent clause is. So I'll say, John went to the park because he was feeling playful. So this sentence has two clauses. It has one independent clause and one dependent clause. Can you tell me what the independent clause is? All right, let me here, I'll explain it more in depth.
Yes. Dependent clause
Correct. So John went to the park is our independent clause, and then because he was feeling playful is his dependent clause. And we know That's dependent because it would not make sense on its own as a sentence, right? So if I give you this, I'm going to give you another sentence or another clause, sorry. I'm going to give you another clause, and then I want you to tell me if that's independent or dependent. Before he came home. Is this independent or is this dependent? Correct. That's a dependent clause because it cannot. Yes. Because this cannot be a sentence by itself. How about this? Is this an independent or a dependent clause? He went outside. Yes. That is an independent clause because it can be used on by itself as a sentence. Awesome, good job. And the reason I wanted to teach you guys what the difference between independent and dependent clauses is because as we move further on to the different types of sentences in English, you're going to see these independent and dependent clauses come up a lot, especially once we move past the simple sentence structures. Okay, so the next topic I want to cover are our yes, I believe this will be our final topic, and then after we'll move on to the listening activity. So what I want to cover is simple sentences. So a simple sentence contains a subject and a verb, and it may also have an object and modifiers. However, it contains only one independent clause. So a simple sentence only contains one independent clause. And that's important. Sorry, fix this. There you go. So what I'm going to do is give you some examples, and then what I want you to do is tell me the subject, verb, and the object. And there is no prepositional phrases in the simple, or in this case, the simple sentences. So she wrote can be its own sentence. And here we have our yellow subject and then our green verb. And remember, a sentence can only has to contain a subject and a verb. She completed her literature review. So in that sentence, what is the subject? Sorry, can you say that one more time? She, correct. So she is the subject in this. So we'll highlight it a yellow. And what about the verb? And remember, verbs can be in a past, present, or future tense. It's completed, right? Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing everyone. Okay, how about the object in this sentence?
Object.
Yes, literature review. Good job. So literature review is the object in this sentence. And remember the verb, this verb is in past tense. So she completed. This is just the past tense of the word complete. So she completed her literature review. How about the next sentence? He organized his sources by theme. So in this case, what is the subject?
Noun.
He is the subject, correct? All right, can someone tell me what the verb in this sentence is? The verb.
Not organizer, organize.
Organized, correct. Organized is the verb in this sentence. And remember, organized is in past tense. But it is still a verb in this case. So how about the object of the sentence? Remember, the object can be a phrase. So he organized his sources by theme. So this is the object of the sentence. All right. What about they studied APA rules for many hours? What would be the subject in this sentence? Yes, they is the subject in the sentence. So let's say a group of friends went to go study. Could say they studied math for many hours. So I'll make this simpler for everyone to understand. So I'll say they studied math for many hours. What is the verb in this sentence? The action word. Studied, correct. So studied is the verb. How about the object of the sentence? Yes, so they studied math for many hours, correct. His sources, they studied math for many hours. Good job. Okay. So we have 2 more minutes, so I'm going to do one more sentence very quickly. And then after that, we're going to move on to our listening activity for today, okay? And you guys are doing an amazing job, by the way. So we're going to try to do something in the present tense. So he was cutting onions in the, or I'll say he is. Okay, so what is the subject of this sentence? He, correct. He is the subject of the sentence. Or if I was to replace this with Sam, now Sam would be the object of the sentence. Okay? So subjects can be either nouns or pronouns. All right. What about the verb of this sentence? Yes, cutting. Is cutting. That's correct. So that's the verb of the sentence. And this verb is in present tense because he is currently cutting the onions, right? Now, what would be the object of the sentence? Yes, it would be onions because that's what he's cutting, right? Awesome job. Okay, just to wrap up the lesson, as you can see, all of these sentences are independent clauses, so they can stand alone by themselves. So the next week we'll be going over complex sentences, compound sentences, and compound complex sentences. And remember, these involve both independent and dependent clauses, and sometimes we have multiple independent and multiple dependent clauses. Awesome. So now I'm going to move on to today's listening activity. So today's listening activity, I have made multiple choice. The first three audio files will be multiple choice. And then the last one is a little bit of a challenge. So I'll highlight that in a red. But on the first, second, and third audio file, I'm going to play and then have you choose the either A, B, C, or D. And then audio file 4 is slightly more of a challenge. And it will it'll just be listing out things that are mentioned in the audio file. Okay. And this the topic that we're covering is ancient China today. So the first question is, how many years can the history of ancient China be traced back to?
Ancient China was one of the oldest and longest lasting civilizations in the history of the world. The history of ancient China can be traced back over 4,000 years. Located on the eastern part of the continent Asia.
I'll play it one more time.
Ancient China was one of the oldest and longest lasting civilizations in the history of the world. The history of ancient China can be traced back over 4,000 years. Located on the eastern part of the continent Asia, today, China is the most populous country in the world.
I'll play it one more time. And the question is, how many years can the history of ancient China be traced back to?
Ancient China was one of the oldest and longest lasting civilizations in the history of the world. The history of ancient China can be traced back over 4,000 years. Located
Yes, correct. So it can be traced back 4,000 years. Okay. The next question is, what was the name of the first dynasty? And also, before I play this audio file, I want to let you guys know that the letter Q in Chinese dynasties are pronounced ch, which, so it might be that's just something to look out for with pronunciation. So in the ancient Chinese dynasties, a lot of them have the letter Q in it, but they're not pronounced Q, it's pronounced ch. So instead of so it'll be chin. With this one right here, the first one is pronounced chin. Just to let everyone know, because I know it may come off as a little confusing. So the question is, what is the name of the first dynasty?
Throughout most of China's history, it was ruled by powerful families called dynasties. The first dynasty was the Shang, and the last dynasty was the Qing.
Okay, so what's the name? Oh, I'm sorry. What's the name of the first dynasty? I'll play it one more time.
Throughout most of China's history, it was ruled by powerful families called dynasties. The first dynasty was the Shang, and the last dynasty was the Qing.
Correct. B is the right answer. So the name of the first Chinese dynasty was the Shang dynasty. Great job, everyone. Okay, now we're going to move on to audio file number 3. So the first question is, what was the name of the first emperor? Name of the first emperor.
Ancient China also boasts the longest lasting empire in history. It began with the Qin dynasty and the first emperor Qin, who united all of China under one rule in 221 BC. Emperors would continue to rule over China for more than 2,000 years.
So I'll play it one more time.
Ancient China also boasts the longest lasting empire in history. It began with the Qin dynasty and the first emperor Qin, who united all of China under one rule in 221 BC. Ancient China also boasts the longest lasting empire in history. It began with the Qin dynasty and the first emperor Qin, who united all of China under one rule in 221 BC. Ancient China also boasts the longest lasting empire in history. It began with the Qin dynasty, the first emperor Qin, who united all of China under one rule in 221 BC.
So what was the name of the first emperor? And I hope this one is pronounced weird, but pronunciation is Qin. I'm having trouble hearing. Do you want me to repeat the audio?
Yes, Senara.
Yeah, okay. So remember the options are Lang, Qin, Shang, and Chang.
Ancient China also boasts the longest lasting empire in history. It began with the Qin dynasty and the first emperor Qin.
I'll replay it one more time.
Ancient China also boasts the longest lasting empire in history. It began with the Qin dynasty and the first emperor Qin, who
Yes, the correct answer is B. So it's the Qin the first emperor was called Qin. Awesome. Okay, I'll move on to the second question. So the next question is, how long would emperors continue to rule China? So I'll start that around 8 seconds.
united all of China under one rule in 221 BC. Emperors would continue to rule over China for more than 2,000 years. And BC. Emperors would continue to rule over China for more than 2,000 years.
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry. One more time. Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing everyone.
There is a background talk going on. I think if we're able to avoid that, that would be very useful, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that would be good. Otherwise, we can hear that conversation, and then Sinara can focus and get the answers. Like she can hear the answers, right? Please. Okay, now it's better. Keep
Yes.
that there, please. Great.
Thank you. So I'm going to replay the audio, and remember the question is, how long would emperors continue to rule China?
21 BC. Emperors would continue to rule over China for more than 2,000 years.
I can play it one more time.
Emperors would continue to rule over China for more than 2,000 years.
That's correct. The right answer is 2000. Okay. So for the last 10 minutes of our listening activity, I'm going to do a challenge activity. So what I'm going to do is have you listen to a portion of the audio, and then you have to listen. I will list a couple of items, and I want you guys to repeat those items back to me based on question. So the first question is, what were the three main religions in ancient China? So the three main religions, and there's three pieces of information to look out for.
Art, culture, and religion were often tied together. There were three main religions or philosophies, including Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. These ideas, called the three ways, had a large impact on the way people lived.
I'll play it one more time.
Art, culture, and religion were often tied together. There were three main religions or philosophies, including Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. These Art, culture, and religion were often tied together. There were three main religions or philosophies, including Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. Art, culture, and religion were often tied together.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
One more time, please.
Yes, of course. If it's too fast, I can read it out myself.
No, dear, those words are not familiar to our children. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. What I can do is go a little slower, and then I can read it straight from, so I can read it instead, and then it'll be much easier to understand. So I'll just read 2 sentences, and then the question is, what were the 3 main religions in ancient China? So art, culture, and religion were often tied together. There were 3 main religions, including Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. And I know these are completely new words. So it's the last 3. So there are 3 main religions, including Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. Yes, and then Confucianism, and Buddhism. Awesome. Now, the next question is, what were the 3 perfections? So, okay, I will read this one out as well, because I think I might have gone too fast in my audio file. So art in ancient China focused on the three perfections, which were painting, poetry, and calligraphy. So art focused on the three perfections, which was painting, poetry, and calligraphy. So what were the three perfections? Yes, painting, poetry, and calligraphy. I can read it out one more time. So art focused on the three perfections, which was painting, poetry, and calligraphy.
Senara, can you explain that word perfections, please?
Yeah, so it's just a name that was kind of used in ancient China. It doesn't necessarily mean perfections, but in sorry.
Are they compulsory things?
No, so it's just like the three main points of art. So I'll say like what were the three it's kind of like the three most important like factors of art for them.
Thank you.
I hope that makes it a little less confusing. So so it was basically the three most important factors of art. So that's what they called the perfections. It's not a word that is used commonly in English. It's just kind of like a translation over. So it means like the three most important factors of art. Which what to ancient so here I'll rephrase the sentence. I'm so sorry for the confusion. So art focused on three main factors: painting, poetry, and calligraphy. And I can repeat that one more time. So art focused on three on three factors. So it's painting, poetry, and calligraphy. Here, I'll finish it off. So calligraphy. All right, and these are the three most important factors of art in ancient China, which is just painting, poetry, and calligraphy. Okay. Thank you everyone for your participation. I know that last one was very challenging, but you guys did amazing on the first three audio files, and thank you so much for all your participation. Okay, so quickly I'll go over our homework. So our homework for this week is again to read an article or a book, or watch a movie or a video. But remember, it must be in English. And I know I did remember when we were going over our homework today, there was a lot of people who are like mentions books in Sinhalese. So try to see if you can find a book or a video that's in English. And just because the point of this is to try to have you interact as much as possible with the English language. So next week, just tell us the title of the media that you either read or watched, and then just tell us what it was about. I like how people are telling us like the main characters of the story and the titles of their stories and even the authors. That's amazing. Thank you so much. So you guys are doing great in that aspect. And then just remember also to have as much English conversations as possible just throughout the week. And this can be either with your parents or with your siblings or your other classmates. So maybe when you're talking about, you know, what the subjects in school, try to talk about that in English, or just try to practice as much as you can having English conversations with people around you, because that's the best way to practice the language. All right, that's all for today's class, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So the Senara did a great job today. Like I think, you know, other than the last one, so it's a total transformation from last week. I think we got a message from, you can unshare the, you know, like the screen for a minute. So the Mrs. Aluhari, I think you sent a message to Senara, and that's very good communication. So we have like that the type of communication we need. And also Senara brought a very important point about the books. So your library has more than 1,000 English titles. I think you don't know maybe, but I think we're going to figure out how to get those books, right? There are a lot of English books, more than 1,000 books in my account, the list of the book we have. So we'll figure out to get them read, right? Maybe we can get our teachers to help. And also, like, we have to keep the silent, like when the class is going on, background voice we have to avoid somehow going forward. And it's great participation. And also the teachers, like we have to remind, we can't thank enough, especially for the IT teachers. 2 of them always come in there to help out you all, and also English teachers, and also like the 4 or 5 of them, all of they come in the morning, right, for you. And your parent wake up 1 hour early and come there for you, and you have to pay the full attention and try to find your own way to learn this, right? So because it's a great opportunity you to learn from Senara. She sacrificed this hour, you know, she prepared, and she could do so many other things, but she has the love for you all and she want to help, right? So the best way to help her, thank her, to learn very carefully, right? So as she mentioned, try to talk each other in few English words, right? Maybe when you get the library book, you might not understand everything, but you know, try to read a couple of sentences, and then you're going to learn one by one, right? So it's great job today. Senara, you did an awesome job. You know, like this is very helpful. So I like to hear from
Sorry for the laugh.
yeah. So do we have somebody from one teacher from Sri Lanka to give some response for the class today?
Yes,
Sir, we have-
Senara did great job today. Actually, the lesson today the lesson is better than the previous one. It's
So,
very
yeah.
faster.
Yeah, very good. So all right. So you know, we can improve further. You know, like your feedback. We are ready. Like we all ready here to, you know, like learn and figure out the best way to get this thing right. Let's focus the library books next time. We'll talk and figure out how do we get the library books to your hand. All right. Thank you, everybody. So we'll meet next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.